Everybody, happy Saturday night. It's been a while since I've been on. Welcome. I thought I'd go live randomly because not only has it been a while since I've been on, but also kind of need something to do. And also, let this be the start of the topic that I have tonight to kick off. Justin, stop beating around the bush. What are you talking about? I am, of course, talking about my latest book. My third Western horror, High Stakes at the Bonesaw Saloon. It is my 14th? Yes, my 14th written book. It will soon be my 14th published book, and I can't wait to discuss and tell you all about it. So again, this is a random video, just talking about it, just trying to build up interest. I am probably going to do another video on this. It's a little more thorough, in the event that nobody watches this one, but basically, I wanted to get on here, just talk shop, First and foremost, what will I be talking about? Well, I'll tell you what the book is about, where it's set in, which might sound familiar. I'll tell you about the characters, and overall, I will tell you about the process that it took for me to write it. So, without further ado, and then of course, I will tell you when it will be published and all that jazz. So, without further ado, a little analysis on the upcoming book, High Stakes at the Bonesaw Saloon. So, what made me want to write this book? Well, one thing I definitely immediately wanted to do was I wanted to write another Western horror. It all started back in 2014 with A Bloody Bloody Mess in the Wild Wild West. It did not continue until 2025, 2024, when I published Brimstone Express. So 10 years later, it took me a whole 10 years later to write my second Western horror, which is crazy. And now it only took me 2 years to write my third. So High Stakes at the Bonesaw Saloon, in full disclosure, was not on the list of books for me to write. A few people know this, and by a few people, I mean like 2 people walking the earth, aside from me, know that I have a list of books that I plan on writing over whatever, right? Big list. High Stakes at the Bonesaw Saloon was not originally on this list. But after I wrote Brimstone Express, I was still in the mood for Western horror. Which is kind of weird, because I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but I feel like a lot of writers, once they write, in that particular genre, they can stick, calm down, Justin. Most authors stick to the same genre, right? Or stick to the same plot, the same themes. I normally don't do this. I stick to the same genre, but I tend to just kind of sort of say, you know what? I want to go a different direction this time. And I usually do. It's usually horror. Sometimes it's poems. Sometimes it's crime thrillers. But the point is, I usually go from like one project to the other. And I did that. Brimstone Express, Nightshade Station, 2 completely different books. Although you wouldn't be able to tell that because of the titles, because, Express, Station, one's a Western horror, one's a crime thriller. But then, after Nightshade Station, I wasn't really sure at the time where I wanted to go. And one of the things that I had done was I had written, like I said, I made this list out back in 2016, a list of books that I wanted to write. Nightshade Station was actually supposed to be a pop-up book. But the more I thought about the title, the more I thought about the story overall, I was like, there's no way I'm making this free. There's no way that I'm not going to just let this sit there. I have to write it. And I did, right? So, High Stakes at the Bonesaw Saloon happened because of Brimstone Express. Because, spoiler alert, your first thing to find out about High Stakes at the Bonesaw Saloon, it takes place in the same universe in the same city as Brimstone Express. However, in my opinion, that does not make it a direct sequel to Brimstone Express. It takes place in the same city as Brimstone Express, the city of the fictional Bloodwater, Arizona. Of course, you may remember that Brimstone Express is also mentioned in Brimstone. The Bonesaw Saloon is also mentioned in Brimstone Express, and I kind of wanted to take that idea because I thought the title of the Bonesaw Saloon was so cool that I wanted to make it its own. I wanted to give it its own book, right? Its own setting in which a book would take place. But I wanted to write about a high stakes Western poker game. But I didn't really have all of the tools, right? And the Bonesaw Saloon was there, but it actually took me a while to sort of come up with that idea. So I had thought of all these titles and stuff, and I was like, well, maybe if I don't come up with a title, maybe it's just not meant to be. Maybe I'm not meant to write a third Western horror so soon, right? And usually that's the case. But like I've said before in the past, inspiration strikes at the most random times, the most beautiful times, but also at the weirdest times, right? And one day, as I'm plugging words, forcing myself to come up with a title, I think I came up with the idea like, hey, let me write a book about the Bonesaw Saloon, but what is it going to be? It's going to be about poker. And I thought of like Showdown at the Bonesaw Saloon, taking off at the bone. There's just these random thoughts. And then like, I want it to be about poker. There's always high stakes in poker. High stakes. High stakes at the Bonesaw Saloon. That's perfect. That's perfect. Let's do that. Let's do that. So the title was born. This then went into the list on my phone. And I was like, you know what? If I'm thinking about this now, it has to be done now. Now, mind you, I can tell you about my books list, but that's for another time. That's for another video. But just know that there's an order in which all my books that I want to write should be written in. And yet, my American Onslaught series has been sitting there since 2017. That literally kicked off the damn list to begin with. And I have skipped over it 3 times now. But you will be happy to know that my next book series could be American Onslaught. I guess you'll have to find out at the end of the video. So, High Stakes at the Bonesaw Saloon, I decided to write it. But what was it going to be about? It was going to be about a high stakes poker game inside the Bonesaw Saloon. Duh. Characters. This one, I think you'll appreciate this. So, one thing that I have done throughout all of my books is that every single time, the main character has always been a man. I'm not sexist, but I am a man, so it's just natural instinct for me to, base my character as a man. With the exception, kind of sort of, Melina in the Wax Factory. She was a co-main character to Dimitri. So for this one, I decided to change things up. Because a Western, you don't think, well, maybe you kind of do, like Calamity Jane, Annie Oakley, a feisty female outlaw, or, cordial woman, as I like to think mine is. And basically, that's exactly what I did. So for the first time ever, officially, one of my books would have a female as the main character, Lavinia Laramie. Laramie, because that just, to me, that screamed. That absolutely screamed Western. And I wanted to make it alliterative because I think one of the things that I had actually seen recently was that you want your character to have a defining name, but also the same first letter and the same last letter for their last name. So, Lavinia Laramie, you're going to remember that name. It's going to stick with you because it's so unique. Lavinia Laramie is the proprietor, the owner of the Bonesaw Saloon. She is 24 years old, she's young, she's feisty, and she doesn't put up with rowdy scoundrels. And if you've got a quarrel or an issue that you want to deal with, you take it outside because she's not going to deal with it inside the saloon. Then, of course, we have the rest of the cast, right? The rest of our characters, if you will. Or the rest of our characters, our cast, if you will. Yeah. The villains. Who would be the villain in High Stakes of the Bonesaw Saloon? Neighbors. The villains. I needed a name. I needed a man that was just so downright diabolical that he fit the Western cliche, the trope that is a Western, right? So you know who I thought of? I thought of Clint Eastwood. But Clint Eastwood usually plays a good guy or neutral sort of character, right? So let's say Clint Eastwood's here, usually plays a neutral character, good guy, neutral. At no point have you ever seen Clint Eastwood just play a ruthless, diabolical, psychopathic outlaw, right? If you read my book, you will. Alistair Drearden, ladies and gentlemen. Alistair Drearden is Clint Eastwood if he were evil in any of the westerns that he starred in. He talks soft. He says very little words. But when he does, everyone listens. That's Alistair Drearden. Absolute cutthroat. Gives no F's, right? But then who are his merry men? Like Caro Dusk and Brimstone Express, Alistair Drearden also has a gang. However, unlike Caro Dusk, he only has 3 members of his gang, whereas Caro Dusk had 4. The first man, Elijah Cutter. Elijah Cutter is similar to Eros Boone from Brimstone Express, right? Elijah Cutter is a former Civil War soldier. He is... Oh, excuse me. Oh. He's a former Civil War soldier, which makes him a bit more grittier, a bit more bloodthirsty than most people that Drayden associates with or is in his gang. The second person in his gang is Sterling Hosford. Now, Sterling Hosford is the man with the rambling mouth. His mouth gets him into trouble. Not only him, but the gang. Which is why Drayden a lot of times just kind of gives him a little glare to let him know, hey, shut up. Sterling Hosford thinks he's funny. He thinks he means well when he speaks, but in reality, he's putting himself and his friends in danger. So, and they're walking danger. So for a man who's walking danger to put his fellow comrades into danger, kind of tells you all you need to know about Sterling Hosford. The third and final member of Drayden's gang is the infamous Tiber Locke. I did not say Tyler. Tiber, Tyber Locke. Tiber Locke is half Native American, or supposedly he is. You'll find out more about this in the book, but if there's one thing I can tell you without giving anything away is that Tiber Locke would love nothing more than to remind you that he has Native American heritage. So there are your casts. And then, of course, there is one Mr. Bardot, who is a former friend and accomplice of one Alistair Drayden. Mr. Bardot, like Alistair Drayden, he's a little more vocal. He's also a former Civil War soldier, hence the reason he and Cutter hit it off. But for the most part, he's very mysterious, he's very quiet, but he will speak his mind if he has to. There are your villains. But are those your villains? The next character I'm going to introduce is one Miss Scarlett Breckenridge. Scarlett Breckenridge is the proprietor and owner of the Viper's Vein Saloon, which is right across from the Bonesaw Saloon. Yes, Western towns were known to have more than one saloon in them. And these two, they butt heads quite often. Scarlett doesn't care for Lavinia, and Lavinia does not care for Scarlett. There's plenty of dialogue to show this, and when the book comes out, I hope you will appreciate it. I wrote Scarlett as one of those women that, back in the day, she's a lot more, she acts proper, but, I mean, she's a madam, so how proper can she possibly be, right? But I've watched enough Westerns and seen enough women portrayed in these Westerns to feel like I've done justice for Miss Scarlett Breckenridge. The next character in this book is Sheriff Percy Crowder. And if there was ever, and I mean ever, a crooked sheriff in a book, it would be this man. Just downright crooked. I'm obviously not going to tell you the things that he does because that would be spoiling the book for you, but just know that he's pretty rotten. And he and Lavinia don't see eye to eye. There's also Marshall Dempsey. Marshall Dempsey is also in the town, and a lot of people feel like he's more of a sheriff than Crowder, but that's kind of a debate for another time, if you will. He and Lavinia are close because the marshal used to be friends with her father, who was also a sheriff. So why didn't he take over? Again, we'll discuss that for another time. Or you can just read the book when it comes out. Those are your main characters. So now, the setting. Like I told you, like Brimstone Express, High Stakes at the Bonesaw Saloon takes place in Bloodwater, Arizona, which of course is fictional. I made it up. And it takes place in the Bonesaw Saloon. It pretty much takes 95%, 95% takes place in Bloodwater, Arizona. So yeah. Last but not least, what is the book about, Justin? Well, therein lies the tale, right? High Stakes at the Bonesaw Saloon is an action-packed, cutthroat Western horror about a gang of outlaws who ride into the town of Bloodwater looking to wreak havoc upon it. But they also like to play poker. So one day they decide to play poker in Lavinia Laramie's Bonesaw Saloon. But eventually they get a little too comfortable. And by too comfortable, I mean they kind of make it a habit to make sure that they're playing poker in the Bonesaw Saloon every single night for an entire week. And every day, more and more people leave until eventually there's nobody in the saloon at night. And Lavinia takes notice of this. And she decides to do something about it. So Lavinia allows Drayden and his men to play poker in the Bonesaw Saloon. Only this time they won't be just playing for money. They will be playing for their lives. Because only one person will leave alive from the Bonesaw Saloon at the end of the night from them playing poker. And that, my friends, is High Stakes of the Bonesaw Saloon. Now, I haven't even done the cover reveal for this puppy, but rest assured, it's a-comin'. And by it's a-comin', I mean, this Thursday or this Friday. Probably Friday. That sounds like a good idea to me. I will be releasing the book on May 15th. May 15th is when I'm going to release this book. So that is also a Friday. So between now and then, the whole point of this video and everything going forward is to build interest for the book. So if you like Western horrors, like books by me, or just need a new book to read, look out for High Stakes at the Bone Sauce Saloon. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, I will likely be back to do another one